Live from Tulsa, Oklahoma, from the House at the River Studios, it's the Tulsa Sound Podcast, Episode 1, with Mr. Eric and Oscar Padron.
All right, this is the Sound of the Tulsa Sound Podcast, and we've had some developments within the Tulsa Sound community today. Our good friend and brother Mark Carpenter has left this mortal plane, and may he rest in peace. I want you to join me in listening to a little bit of Mark Carpenter this evening as we think about this man.
It's a long ride.
Mark was a long-time Tulsa Sound musician, a blues player. Mark wrote a lot of songs. Mark was a devoted father and husband. Mark was a hell of a guy. Character in every way, definitely an icon in the Tulsa Sound community.
He was a latitude.
He was a latitude. The Latitudes were a great band here in the Tulsa area.
Back in those good old days.
And we want to send Mark Carpenter off this evening and wish him well. It's almost it's hard to believe.
This recording we're listening to is from the prior tribute show, isn't it?
It is. And Mark Carpenter and Steve Pryor were great friends. Old friends.
Well, I was in a band with Mark in 1982, 83, the Latitudes. Dan Humphrey, John Latta, sweet Tawny Blissett, and of course, John Perkey was one of our keyboard players, and Steve Panzeri was our original keyboardist. But Carpenter would come and sit in from time to time, a lot of time, and we used to have sort of a house gig at Doug's Soccer Bar at 15th and Lewis. That's where the Walgreens drive-thru is now. Interesting that it was a drugstore then and it's a drugstore now. Anyway, Mark would come in and set these sailing solos. Dan Humphrey would kind of let him burn. I remember one night he showed up and was setting his amp up. He said, "Hey, come over here. And I came over there. I said, "What is it?" He says, "Look what I got here." And he pulls this brown paper bag out of the back of his amplifier. This kind of shit-eating grin on his face. I'm like, "What's that?" He said, "Don't tell the bar, goddammit. But look here." And he opens it up, and he's got a bottle in there. It's clear, like Evergreen. It's clear grain whiskey, like Everclear. But it's got like a brown paper sack label on it, and the label says coonskin whiskey, guaranteed not to be more than 30 days from the distillery, Mountain Home, Arkansas. And I'm like, "Mark, where did you get this?" He said, "Man, I brought it back from Arkansas." I said, "What are you going to do with it?" He said, "Here's what I'm going to do with it." Twist that lid off and knocked a big old gulp of that stuff back. And I could tell that even though, he was Mark, it was not more than 30 days from a distillery. And it was so aromatic that I was like, "Wow, dude, wow." And he's like, "Oh, that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff." But he was a sweetheart, and he was so nice to Tawny and I at the time. We were the kids in the band, and Mark was so sympathetic to the fact that we had these old dudes on us all the time. Let's go, dang it, it's not the way to play. But I loved him. I saw Mark about a year ago, right after he had just done his last recording. We tried to find some of that for you tonight, but we weren't sure So we're going to bring it to you in another cast later on. But I guess I really haven't even... I'm not going to let myself get in shock about it because I celebrated his life. Sad I'm not going to be able to talk to him anymore.
Yeah.
But Tawny sent me a message this afternoon, or this evening, asking me if I had heard that information. And I said, well, yes, you had told me earlier in the day. And I had, for some reason or another, when I got to work this morning, I put on Rolling Stone's Tattoo You, which is sort of weird for me because normally, I won't listen to a rock album in the morning usually, but I did. And Mark Carpenter was my Keith Richards.
You're Keith Richards.
Yeah. Well, as a musician in a band, guys that you play with will remind you of people that are, known stars or whatever. And in this case, it was just the way he was. It wasn't a sort of a morals call or anything. It was just he was that character in our band. He
had that character. He had that style. He had that swagger.
Absolutely.
He admitted that.
And it was incredible. And so, anyway, we wanted to share that. We wanted to share that number with you today, and get a little bit of his feel in here. That was Mark,
absolutely,
performing with David White and some
Damon Daniels on drums.
I don't think that was Damon. That didn't look like him. That looked like Steve Gadd.
Steve Gadd on drums.
That was Steve Gadd on drums. There. Yeah.
I met Mark Carpenter at his home. He was married to a wonderful woman named Ann Kramer, who is a graphic designer and an artist and a T-shirt artist. And she makes esoteric T-shirts for groovy people. And I became friends, and I got a call from her, and she said, hey, there's this guy coming in from L.A. You got to go see him. You got to go see him. This guy's great. And so we all loaded up, and we went down to Joey's, and we saw Mark Carpenter from L.A. That's how he was introduced to us. Was this guy's from L.A.
He's from L.A. Hale High School.
We got blown away. There he stood on stage, and he's wearing like leather pants, and he's got the rock star, like totally Jim Morrison belt on, and his hair's down in the middle of his back, and he looks like an Allman Brother.
This was after my days.
He looks like an Allman Brother, but cooler and meaner, and he's on stage, and he's ripping it up, and he's singing his fucking heart out, and I was like, damn, who is this guy? And, of course, Ann was head over heels, and they got together after that and got married and all that good stuff. But,
that's
that was my introduction to Mark, was through word of mouth, through Ann Kramer, and he was a guiding light and force in my early years in the Tulsa Sound scene. He always had advice. He had things to say, and Mark wasn't shy about that. Mark was a character and a half. Tonight we celebrate him. We miss Mark Carpenter. We miss that guitar playing. We miss that singing.
Well, let's listen to him sing just for a second here, and then we're going to take it out for another break, and we'll be back shortly. But let's listen to Brother Mark. Brother Mark, baby, I'm with you now.